Welcome to the Chilling Ghost Stories channel. Today we bring you a famous Chinese ghost story titled The Moonlight Mystery. If you enjoy the story, please give us a like and subscribe to support the channel. Thank you. Now let's get started.
Chapter 19, Right or Wrong. February 6th, whose personality did you use when speaking with Doctor Zhuān? The scene of Doctor Zhuān jumping off the building deepened the dark shadow haunting Shěn, and the threat of death became ever stronger. Shěn began to have nightmares about Shěn Wèi Tīng jumping off a building. She realized that no matter what faith she adhered to, there were certain events that seemed unavoidable. Her mood began to plummet. Every day, only when meeting Zhuān or her mother did Shěn feel life still held some sweetness. But now her mother's one-week vacation had ended, and she was about to leave. Mrs. Uōng Lán Shān would be moved to the ward for critical patients, and Shěn wanted to take the last few opportunities to unravel the mysterious atmosphere surrounding the old woman. If I could remember, I wouldn't be considered a patient with multiple personality disorder. You should know that someone with multiple personalities, besides their primary self, cannot remember the expressions of their other personalities. Otherwise, it's just acting. The police also asked me, but what could I tell them? Surely, they'll ask you, why were you at the scene? Mrs. Sanh lay on the bed, her eyes staring straight at the ceiling, throwing the question back at Shěn. At that time, I had a headache, and it felt like some external force was guiding me. So I went to look. When I found the treatment room where you were present, the headache suddenly disappeared after I entered the inner chamber, Shěn replied truthfully. At this point, Shěn was almost certain Mrs. Sanh was the key figure in a series of bizarre events. In my opinion, after Doctor Zhuān jumped off the building, your headache was gone. Don't say such nonsense. Although I was dissatisfied with Doctor Zhuān's diagnosis and decisions, I never had ill feelings toward him. He was a diligent and excellent doctor. Does your explanation of your headache align with common sense? Shěn shook her head. Mrs. Sanh seemed to understand everything. It seems you are becoming more like me, which shows you are destined for this place. You'll keep coming back here in the future. I will not. I think there are things in this world that cannot be explained by common sense, but I won't dwell on them. You say one thing but think another. You claim that, but why do you keep clinging to the 405 murder case? At this moment, Shěn remembered that the old woman seemed to see through people's thoughts. A chill ran down her spine. Trying to extract information from this woman was like a moth flying into a flame. I'm not as terrifying as you think. I'm also saddened by Dr. Zhuān's death. I don't want to see anyone, including you, die. Mrs. Sanh tried to break Shěn's silence, but her words offered little comfort. You've seen many deaths, haven't you? In just 1 month, I've witnessed 2 people jump to their deaths. I haven't seen too many deaths firsthand, but even when I see someone seemingly healthy, I can feel death's presence. When I was young, I foolishly told people about this, and that's how I ended up here. Everyone around me said my symptoms were typical of someone possessed by spirits, meaning spirits had entered my body. Back then, I was half skeptical, but later I understood completely. It was all nonsense. Shěn recalled the scene in the treatment room. Didn't Mrs. Sanh resemble someone possessed? Perhaps the spirits people talk about are the presence of death that you sense. Where exactly is it? Mrs. Sanh, who had been lying down, suddenly sat upright. She leaned in close to Shěn, as if trying to see her clearly, then tapped her finger on her head and said, "They're all in here." She then pointed her finger at Shěn's forehead, "They're here too." After saying this, she lay back down motionless. Shěn was stunned, feeling that this explanation sounded strangely familiar. "I don't understand what you mean," she said, hoping Mrs. Sanh would clarify. "You really don't understand? Have you ever heard the sayings, haunted mind and spirits in the heart? You mean there are no actual ghosts in this world, that ghosts only exist in people's minds, right?" "I wouldn't say you're right," nor would I say you're wrong. So, is it right or wrong? Mrs. Sanh sat up again, pointing both index fingers at Sheen's forehead. How many times must I say it? Whether it's right or wrong, it's all here. 12 p.m., June 3rd. Mrs. Sanh had been transferred, and Sheen felt a vague emptiness, as if something had been lost. Would brighter days ever return? The affection of Xie Xuan and her mother's care still couldn't dispel the haunting specter of death lingering around her. The 405 murder case remained unsolved, and Uōng Lán Shān might hold the key to unraveling the mysteries, but her madness and eccentricity made her a menacing presence. The female students hospitalized earlier had all jumped to their deaths. Could Mrs. Sanh be connected to them? While Sheen sat dazed, a nurse arrived, saying someone had come to visit. It was the young anatomy teacher, Zhang Wenguan. Sir, did I cause you trouble that night? Gun's visit surprised Sheen. Not at all. The school did question me, but Sheen, you're not a wanted criminal, and I didn't break any laws, so I wasn't under pressure. Did you come to see me for something? No, just visiting. I hope you focus on recovering so you can leave the hospital soon. If you're willing, I can tutor you over summer break so you don't fall behind. Sheen nodded in gratitude. Each visit from loved ones, classmates, or teachers brought warmth and courage to Sheen. Returning to her ward, she felt motivated and opened her anatomy textbook to read. When she first arrived, she hadn't believed she'd stay long and had brought many textbooks, fearing she'd miss out on her studies. Yet after enduring nightly terrors, she had set aside her academics. This was the first time she opened a book, but after half an hour, she felt tired. As her eyes left the pages, Sheen decided to take a walk. A few steps into the hallway, she saw Guan sitting in the nurse's office, engrossed in reading something. In the nurse's office, only patient files were worth reading, but why was an anatomy teacher allowed to access medical records? Whose records was he reading? Suspecting it had to do with her, Sheen approached. Guan quickly looked up, saw her outside the glass door, and hastily left the office, disappearing down the long hallway. Just now, whose medical record did Mr. Zhang Wenguan read? He's not a doctor here. What qualifications does he have to read patient records? Sheen was certain there was something hidden behind this, so she sternly asked the nurses. The nurses, however, didn't think it was anything unusual and replied naturally, he has been authorized by the hospital director. He reads most of the patient's medical records. Did he read mine? We don't monitor that, so we don't know, the nurses replied, glancing at one another. Sheen understood, but why would Mr. Zhang Wenguan read her medical record? For some reason, the shadow of doubt haunting her grew larger by the moment. Sheen even felt as though she had fallen into a large conspiracy from which she couldn't escape, with no one to help her. There's a visitor for Sheen. The nurses took this chance to shoo Sheen away. Sheen never expected that the person waiting in the visiting room would be Uōng Lán Shān. Shan, please help me get out of here. Sheen couldn't believe that she blurted out such a pitiful plea as her opening line. Uōng Lán Shān, who had been feeling slightly uneasy, burst into tears at the sight of Sheen looking pale in her hospital gown, her long hair unkempt. Uōng Lán Shān, a girl who feared neither heaven nor earth, was actually crying. Realizing how weak and pitiful she appeared, Sheen felt guilty for making her friend cry during her first visit. Shan, am I seeing things? Is it really you? Sheen grasped Uōng Lán Shān's arms tightly and stared at her. Uōng Lán Shān, still teary-eyed, returned her gaze. Sheen noticed that Uōng Lán Shān had gained some weight during her time recovering, and she quickly complimented her to lighten the somber mood. You're no longer so skinny. You've become a proper beauty. Uōng Lán Shān snorted. Returning to her usual self, she teased, Sheen, you're something else. We just met, and you're already mocking me. I was just released from the hospital and came here straight away to see you. Surprised? Who did you think was visiting you? Let me guess. Was it Xie Xuan, the star couple legend everyone admires? Or maybe the young anatomy teacher? I saw him earlier, was it him? Don't mention him. Yexin frowned. I used to think he was a good person, but just now, I found out he read my medical record. Ouyang Shan raised her eyebrows. I'll look into him. I've been feeling so down lately. When I heard you were forced to stay here, I was furious that my jaundice wasn't improving and I couldn't come visit you. I cried so much. Yexin's eyes grew misty. Please don't cry anymore. I'm really okay. It's just that my hasty investigation of the 405 murder case made people think I'm mentally ill. But I've uncovered some clues, though they've led me into an even bigger maze. If you hadn't come, I might have had to give up since I'm stuck in here. Tell me everything, don't leave out any details, including the parts about the Golden Lion King. When Ouyang Shan left Jiangjing Psychiatric Hospital, her emotions were a mix of relief and worry. Looking up at the bright sky, she tried to imagine Yexin's feelings inside the hospital. Yexin refused to accept she was mentally ill and had maintained this resolve for so long. This alone was rare and admirable. But was Yexin truly not mentally ill? Ouyang Shan chastised herself for even entertaining the thought. How could she doubt Yexin's mental state? Yexin's emotions earlier, her joy, anger, and distress, hadn't been the least bit abnormal. Ouyang Shan felt that Yexin was even more normal than most people. Still, Ouyang Shan understood that the renowned Jiangjing Psychiatric Hospital wouldn't simply make a mistake. Moreover, her mother had mentioned that Dr. Shan and Dr. Zhuān were both highly experienced physicians with an extremely low error rate. Symptoms of mental illness didn't always manifest at every moment. Perhaps Yexin had been in a lucid state earlier. Ouyang Shan. A voice called from behind. Turning, she saw Yo Shuliang, a male student of average height. She remembered he was Yexin's fellow townsman and the president of the university's photography club. Did you just visit Yexin? Yes. Ouyang Shan regarded him cautiously. Yo Shuliang was wearing a white coat, with a textbook tucked under his arm. How is she? She's fine. Sensing her guarded demeanor, Yo Shuliang didn't press further. He bid her goodbye and walked off with his bicycle. Ouyang Shan couldn't help but call after him. If you're so concerned about Yexin, why don't you visit her yourself? I've already visited a few times. We're currently doing internships here, so it's convenient. Why do so many guys visit her? And why didn't you visit today? Yo Shuliang hesitated before replying, we're just hometown friends. To be honest, every time I see her, I feel a bit sad. Why? Is it because she's in a hospital? Yes. This environment is very stressful, and she hasn't improved. Wait, what do you mean she hasn't improved? I think she's perfectly fine. Why do you think she's unwell? Yo Shuliang paused before saying, perhaps you should go back to school and ask around. Who should I ask? The school has thousands of people. I'll give you a hint, have you heard about the star couple? Pretending not to know, Ouyang Shan furrowed her brow. That sounds unfamiliar. Are they talking about you? Ridiculous. It's about a male student in Class C. Oh, you mean that Jin Mao Shirwan? I've heard of him. I'll go ask him. 1600 hours, June 3rd, is Xie Xuan here? Shang stood in the hallway of the male dormitory, which was filled with an unpleasantly pungent smell. She shook her head while knocking on the door. The door wasn't closed, but Shang, having caught a glimpse of someone changing clothes inside, politely knocked. A male voice replied, Lion King, your peach blossom luck has arrived. Annoyed, Shan muttered a line from Mao Zedong's poetry, the sweet potatoes are cooked, add beef, if no one eats, just throw it away. Whether or not Xie Xuan was there, why was he acting all shy like a girl? As soon as she finished speaking, a tall male student with straight brows and bright eyes stepped out, looking very handsome. Shan silently admired Ye Xin's sharp eye for people. She asked, "Are you Xie Xuan?" "I'm not." "Then why are you coming out?" "I'm not here to distribute meals." "You can't just claim something that's not yours." "I want to see Xie Xuan, can you call him for me?" Shan raised her voice. "If there's something you want, just tell me," he replied. "But who are you?" "Li Zhiyang. Since Xie Xuan has been harassed too much, I am in charge of passing along messages for him." Shan suddenly remembered. This was the cold-faced guy Ye Xin had mentioned before. Though she knew this guy was quite close to Xie Xuan, she still said, "I don't care what your name is, but are you his wife or his mother? Why are you shielding him so much? Is he some kind of national treasure, afraid of being disturbed by people? I need to talk to him, so go call him for me. I'm Ye Xin's best friend." Zhiyang's eyes suddenly bulged, as if they were about to shoot flames, staring at Sanh. "All right. We were just looking for Ye Xin to settle things, and you girls come right to us. What kind of mental illness does Ye Xin have, dragging along Xie Xuan too? Even the police came here asking about nonsense. Tell me, what kind of madness has Ye Xin fallen into? You're the crazy one." If it were any other girls who were insulted like this by Li Zhiyang, they would probably burst into tears. But this was Ouyang Shan, she only felt a little teary. She glared back, coldly saying, "Ye Xin is in the hospital right now. Perhaps she has some misunderstandings, and that's why I'm here to clear things up. But how would I know if I don't talk to Xie Xuan? You won't let us clarify the situation and instead just go on ranting." Ouyang Shan raised her voice, "Xie Xuan. If you're still a man, come out here and explain." A male student standing nearby spoke mysteriously, "Well, Lodai Heap only does this out of love." Before he could finish, Li Zhiyang gave him a chop to the chest, making him cough uncontrollably. "You keep pushing people around like this, how would anyone know whether you have good intentions?" A disheveled guy came out from the room, looking listless. "I'm Xie Xuan," he said. Ouyang Shan looked at Xie Xuan, his dejected appearance making her feel disappointed. "This is the kind of courage you have. How can you blame me? It's only because Ye Xin, who's so close to you, has caused trouble. First, it's the student management office, then the police, then the internal newsletter and the school radio station. All these people keep coming to interrogate and torture me. Not to mention the guys at home who always tease me. I was never great at studying, but now I'm in trouble. I'm too scared to even go to class. If I fail some exams, the school might expel me. Then I wouldn't be able to visit your room 405 to jump out and create a mutation in the 405 murder case. We'd have a guy dead. Isn't that exciting?" Ouyang Shan relaxed a bit, thinking to herself, well, he's not entirely wrong, and he even has a bit of humor. He still seems like the Xie Xuan that Ye Xin always described. She glanced around at the guys standing around and said sternly, "What are you all looking at? You're all acting like retired old folks, just sitting around wasting time." Li Zhiyang, realizing it was time to back off, glared at the crowd, causing them to scatter. Xie Xuan waved his hand, saying, "Let's talk inside." Two male students in the room got the hint and left to play football. Xie Xuan and Ouyang Shan sat across from each other, with Li Zhiyang sitting next to Xie Xuan. Ouyang Shan said, not very cheerfully, "Why is there a third person here? Do you have business with us?" Li Zhiyang was about to argue, but Xie Xuan quickly interrupted, "Whatever it is, I'll tell Li Zhiyang, we never keep secrets from each other. Don't worry." Ouyang Shan thought to herself, there are guys like this in the world. She got straight to the point, "All right, let me ask you, do you know Ye Xin? Right now, even if I didn't know her, it would be hard not to. She's called my top-tier lover," you know. Actually, I didn't really know Yashin before, but when we were in class together, we would sometimes comment on this and that. Of course, Yashin caught my eye. She's beautiful, so it's natural. Even you two, you look like a couple, and we joked about it more than once. But, let's cut to the chase. I can guarantee that I've never confessed to her. Have you been to Wuxi or Giheng? No. I was at school all those days, and I have plenty of people who can vouch for me. That's why those cops from Giheng had to leave empty-handed. Do you know how to sing? How about the piano? I can shout, who doesn't know that? But I'm musically illiterate, how could I sing? As for the piano, I don't even know how to touch one. I know you're asking about that singing competition. It's unfair to blame me. Later, many people criticized me, saying I signed up but didn't participate, wasting their time. Ouyang Shang sat there, dazed, as if her mind were full of 100,000 thoughts, but also strangely empty. She mumbled to herself, I really don't know whether I should believe him. This was enough to prove that Yashin was suffering from hallucinations. The worst part was that Yashin had fallen victim to a pure and innocent love that didn't even exist. Li Zhiyang said, if you don't believe him, then why come here and ask? She asked one last question, since Yashin went to the hospital, have you visited her? No. I'm not stupid enough to tie myself down. Xie Sun's words were like a bucket of cold water splashed in Ouyang Shang's face, chilling her to the bone. Her head spun. Was this the harsh reality? Indeed, Yashin had hallucinations, typical symptoms of schizophrenia. These delusions had lasted until now, preventing her from leaving the hospital soon. Yashin thought she had a perfect love, but in reality, she never knew Xie Xuan. Why would Yashin have such delusions? Was she becoming a victim of the 405 murder case? The strange thing was, Yashin described Xie Xuan so vividly and convincingly that everyone had to believe her. Was Yashin's illness really that severe? After leaving the male dorm, Ouyang Shang was lost in thought, not realizing she had already reached the student union room. Yes, that's right. The day of the self-written and self-performed song contest, Yashin showed some signs. The head of the arts department said, and Ouyang Shang asked about the incident of Xie Xuan being late to the stage. He continued, the contest went smoothly at first, but before contestant number 5 was about to perform, we realized that contestant number 6, Xie Xuan, wasn't in the backstage area. His name was on the list, and we recognized it was written by Yashin. At that moment, Yashin was very anxious and called out several times for Xie Xuan to come backstage. But he was nowhere to be found. We waited for a while, and the audience started to boo. Tia Li Yang, who was co-hosting with Yashin, said we shouldn't wait anymore and should invite the next performer. But Yashin insisted on waiting, standing there muttering to herself. The audience's boos grew louder, almost causing a riot. Luckily, Li Yang had the presence of mind to invite another student, who was also a key member of the arts team, to sing 2 karaoke songs, while reminding the next contestant to be ready. This helped us handle the situation. Fortunately, this student sang very well and even mimicked Zhou Huajian so well that the audience applauded. I glanced over at Yashin and saw her eyes brimming with tears, but she was back to her usual self and went on stage with Li Yang. Afterward, Yashin hosted the show quite successfully, so we almost forgot about the strange incident earlier. But when the awards were about to be announced, I noticed something was off. Yashin asked me why Xie Xuan didn't receive an award. I was about to explain when she suddenly ran off. We were busy packing up the stage and didn't have a chance to ask her more. After that, we didn't see Yashin at the student union anymore. We heard that her father had fallen ill and passed away, and that Yashin dropped out of school and went to Wuxi. Apparently, she faced many difficulties there. So, that means Xie Xuan wasn't lying. He really didn't participate in the singing contest, Ouyang Shang mumbled to herself. The head of the arts department thought to himself, this girl isn't any better than Shěn. But then he remembered something. I have a recording from that night because the recorder was placed near where Shěn and Li Yang were hosting, and it captured all sounds, maybe it even recorded the sounds from beside the stage. If you want, you can listen to it. It might be helpful for Shěn's treatment. To be honest, I was even planning to have Shěn become the vice chairperson to take over for me later. Uōng Lán Shān quickly responded, that would be great. The head of the arts department found the cassette tape, rewound and fast-forwarded it, then played it. After a round of applause, Shěn's voice could be heard. Now, I invite the judges to give their scores. I'd also like to make an urgent announcement. Please have singer Xie Xuan come backstage immediately. About half a minute later, Shěn's voice again. Please have singer number 6, Xie Xuan, come backstage immediately. Li Yang and Shěn had finished announcing the scores for contestant number 5, and Shěn once more announced, please have singer number 6, Xie Xuan, come backstage. This is the final call. If he doesn't come, he will be disqualified. There were many voices of discontent and whistles from the audience. Li Yang's voice could be heard. Shěn, we can't keep waiting like this, let's call the next contestant out. Then came Shěn's voice, just wait a few more minutes. The boos grew louder. Shěn's voice became stronger, as if she were questioning someone. So, you can play the guitar, why did you ask me to borrow a piano? Isn't that a waste of effort? Li Yang seemed surprised. What's going on, Shěn? Who are you talking to? Shěn sighed, sounding frustrated. Stop talking, just get on with the performance. Clearly, Li Yang was a bit scared. Who's Shěn talking to? Who should hurry up and perform? Are you okay? Then Li Yang called out, head of the arts department, come and check, Shěn, it seems like she seems a bit. The head of the arts department asked, Shěn? What's wrong with Shěn? Then he instructed, Li Yang, you need to think of a way to save the stage. Maybe Shěn is just really tired from preparing for the contest. Let her calm down before we continue the competition. Li Yang then called out, Bing Juan, come here and save the day. You're good at singing, Zhou Hua Jian. Tian Wu Ha can handle the music, and I'll go sort things out. The boos gradually faded, and Li Yang's voice announced, next, the student union has a surprise for everyone. A shining star of the music world has come to visit our singing competition. Close your eyes and see if you can recognize who's singing. The melody of Don't Want to Be Alone by Zhou Huajian began to play, and Bing Jun's voice followed, sounding just like Zhou Huajian. A female audience member shouted, It's Zhou Huajian. The accompanying music was loud, covering the sounds of talking in the backstage, but the head of the arts department could still be faintly heard. Maybe Shěn is just too tired from preparing for the contest. Let her rest. If she needs to go to the hospital, just let me know. After the two songs in the style of Zhou Huajian, applause erupted like thunder. Li Yang could be heard announcing, I'll be the one to announce the next performance. Then the head of the arts department called out, Shěn, are you okay? Don't push yourself too hard. After that, Shěn and Li Yang continued hosting, and although Shěn's voice was a little hoarse, it soon became as smooth as it was before. After listening to the tape, Uōng Lán Shān sat there in a daze, only snapping out of it when the head of the arts department called the medical room. Don't worry, I'm fine. I was just thinking for a moment. Could I borrow this tape to listen to it?